people, Ping William, in Juba, Malatori, hey, I'm yo, Ping William, in Benti, Walla Quaju, hey, wow, Ping William, in Malkal, Walla Pinyaram, Ping William,
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm back again. My guest this evening is our usual guest, Edmund Yakani. Welcome again. We have a show that always we do every Friday or weekend to talk about the issues face our country. Today we will discuss about few of the topic. So Edmund went to Upper Nile last week and he went there and see some of the stuff. So now he's back. So we will let him update the South Sudanese in diaspora and back home to see what did he find out or what was his mission in Upper Nile. So Edmund Yakani, welcome and happy Sunday. How everything going on in Juba? I heard that there's raining season is begun. So which is a good thing. The time people go and do farm work.
Yeah. Thank you very much for hosting me at this particular moment, at this particular session. Yes, I've been in the region of Upper Nile, mainly Melekal, Bentiu, and Pariang, big back to Juba. I remember last time I was in Bentiu, we were supposed to do interview. The internet couldn't help us, but we managed to do something. So I have quite a number of observations on our region of Upper Nile in particular. And I think this I can speak to so many issues related to elections, related to the use of the oil revenue of the 5%, where is it and what's its impact. Juba is fine, rain have started, but also economic pressure is so much. SSP is getting always low against the US dollars or depreciating against the US dollars. Common issues is we are having the issue of red eye, which is a big issue, a medical issue. So many people in Juba have red eye sickness because of the heat of the waves of the heat that has happened in the past. And of course, we're expecting more heats coming. But also, one of the breaking news in Juba is the reduction of the staff of Nile Pet salary to 50%. This tells you the economic situation is really pressing. And the rumors around whether there's a loan or no loan of 13 billion from UAE, what does that mean for 20 years or not? These are some of the top issues in Juba. That's what Juba is sort of like really much more of. And of course, also politically, the waves of the reshuffles that is going on, the change of the governor of Central Equatorial State, deputy governor of Western Equatorial State, and then reshuffle in Jonglei State. So almost every politician is attending to SSBC. So everybody's waiting for what type of decrees are coming. Am I in? Am I out? So people are jubilating. And if you see the houses of the new appointees, is full of dances. Lobbies are now using traditional dances to be known in order for appointment. So that's how Juba is. That's the climate of Juba that we're in now. And then, of course, the issue of Rome peace process is another sort of like a new political dimension in Nairobi on the 10th. Next week is a launch. So that's how Juba is. Issues of campaign, but then there was a huge charges against humanitarian properties in terms of the oil, and then goods that come from humanitarian entities who have been taxed, but at least now the means of finance have waived those taxes, but still there are issues. So that's how Juba is, and that is how South Sudan is. Outside Juba, across the country, the deadly violence that we seriously condemn. You see the case of Murle attacking Eastern Equatoria and killing so many people, adopting big number. And that's a challenge for our young person who was appointed as chief administrator for Pibora administrative area, Gola Boyoy. He's challenged with that challenge immediately. And also crisis going on in Nirol County, Duke County, of Jongole, Nirol, and Duke are really having experience of a lot of classes going on. In Western Equatoria, the issue of Tombra is coming back again. A priest faith is not known whether he's safe or he's killed or he's dead or he's alive. And then as extrajudicial killing and targeted attacks are going on in Tombra. And then if you go far as to Unity State, SSPDF and IU are confronting themselves around Mayendit, close to Koch County, and I've been there. I've seen how the situation look like. So Juba sounds more economic pressure. Outside, it's more of really communal violence that is claiming life. So that's how South Sudan is, but we will have more when we go to the details of the topics. Otherwise, thank you very much. And congratulations for having website, by the way. Lex Media website. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we have, we just launched the website, the new website yesterday. So it will be great. We will be adding more page, and then that's where we will be do, if that's a news that we will be posting on that website instead of Facebook. So it's good. Thank you so much. So it's really, we look forward to use that website to do a lot of new breaking news and stories on that website. So thank you. Let's begin with your visit to Upper Nile. So you were there for a week, and you see one of the challenges I always hear about the oil pollution in that area. So affected the human life, affected the environmental. So what did you find over there? That's the one. Number two, I heard that there was 5% has been given to that area, to Upper Nile, those where the oil is. But there's no, when we see in the news and see the picture, there's no end development going on in Upper Nile area where the oil is coming from. Where is 5% of oil revenue go in Unity State? So those are the things. So thank you. Go ahead. Let's start with that discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. My tour first, I started with Melekal. I was in Melekal town, and I was in Melekal town with high delegation that came from New York, from UN Peacebuilding Fund. The advisor of the UN Secretary General on UN Peacebuilding Fund, the director of UN Peacebuilding Fund, and the donors of the UN Peacebuilding Fund, mainly you start Brazil, Norway, Denmark, quite a number of countries, including Japan. So I went with this delegation to Melekal because Melekal is becoming one of the beneficiaries of the UN Peacebuilding Fund. And in Melekal town, this is what we did, is that working together with the leadership of the political leadership on the ground, we're able to see the POCs or the IDPs. We're able to visit them. We're able to see the returnees who are South Sudanese from Sudan, and we're able to see the situation of Sudanese refugees in the region of Upper Nile, and we're able to expose ourselves to what's happening in the Melekal town. So my findings as a South Sudanese from my visit to Melekal town, one is that life is deteriorating in Melekal. That's one thing I'd like to make it very clear. The governor is trying his level best to be much more responsive. Him and his leadership, they're trying their level best. So governor, deputy governor, the cabinet, they're trying their level best to be responsive to the challenges facing the citizens. But to be honest with you, the aid that comes from the central government, that help the state government to provide social service to the people, is completely below expectation. I don't do zero, it is there something, but it's below expectation. That's one thing that happened. And we have very destructive national political elites whom have their allies at the states level, some of them are at the county level, in the manner that they try to use communal violence and communal misunderstanding on ethnic line as a ladder to power or as a strategy of retaining power. So there's this question of access to the eastern bank of the Nile, and that means you are talking about Sholok versus Padang Dinka conflict, and that is highly political charged by some politicians at national level, and some are at state level, and some at the county level, and that's causing a tension among our communities. That's something I saw in Melekal, very tough. And of course, the town is below expectation, as I said, in terms of service delivery. If you look at the university, does not represent a quality of the university that you wish to be in Melekal town. And if you see the level of stress people have gained where they don't express themselves, is really something challenging in the Melekal town. So the social services in Melekal is below expectation. Now, if you start talking about in this phase of elections, to be honest, people still are doubtful because the way how they look at the function of the government at the state level does not show them that there's a really proper preparation. Besides, the National Election Commission have visited Melekal, and they might have raised awareness on the citizens to prepare themselves for that. But questions of social services is a bit tough in Melekal town. And visiting the returnees are really at a very disturbing situation. The only people who rescue the returnees is a humanitarian assistance that comes from either IOM and other UN agencies, and that is funded through the UN Peace Building Fund. That's why we're able to visit. But if you look at the standard of the living of the returnees and of the people who are displaced actually from the POC outside Melekal town and students, refugees, the standard of living is below expectation. And really it's very hard. Children are sick. The medical assistance is inadequate. These are all, and simply assistance of the national government is below. And that's related to the question of the economic pressure that the national government is having. So that is it. Now, when you ask about the 5%, we may not talk about the 5% before the crisis of Sudan that lead to the, a drop in the flow of the oil in the international market. But let's talk about the 5% from all this period of time. If you go to the communities where the 5% is, and if you look at the state government, remember the 5% is divided as follows. 3% goes to state government and 2% goes to the community where the oil is being produced. If you look at the 3% and look at the state infrastructure, Melekal state government infrastructure still remain the infrastructure of Bashir's time. So when I refer to Bashir's time, it means it's the infrastructure of the CPA. There's no improvement. Actually, the current governor is trying to modify the structures. Can you imagine we sit with all these donors in a state hall that have no AC, and the current governor is trying his level best to fix the infrastructure of the state in terms of the secretariat building of the government. So the previous governors that went throughout Melekal, none of them have done any development. The money is just going to their pockets. The money is going for the fees of their children, accommodation of their families outside the country. Some of the money is going for bribing people who are elites. And one of the things that I have seen that has had huge impact on Melekal, it is the culture of the warlords. Warlords have really denied Melekal from growth and development. Remember the time of Tanginyang, and Tanginyang later on died. We have now Olong came in, now Olong is with the government. So if you see Melekal, you can see the impact of militantism in denying development in town like Melekal, which is supposed to be one of the developed towns. And I think that's for me something that I have observed. So if you look at the oil percentage of 5%, which is like a contribution that help state to run developmental program and help communities to run developmental program, it's a big problem. And if you look at two counties like Panyikang and other counties where they have the 2%, it's been suspended. Now, when you say where is the 2% that has been suspended, who is gaining? The common practice of the oil contribution that I have observed from Melekal, Bentio, maybe Little Pariang is a bit different from these two locations, is that actually elites use the 2% for themselves. They buy off chiefs, they buy off vocal youth, they buy off vocal women, they buy off vocal academia. And once they're given, for example, if you say the equivalent of 2% is equal to 500,000 or equals to 1 million, you come to realize that only 100,000 or 10,000 you can use to buy off the rest, and the rest you walk away with it. So the law, what is prescribed in the law as a system of using the 5% contribution to the state and to the community is totally not being followed. When you start right from Melekal, you can continue up to unity. It's not been followed. So some political elites have sat on this money and they're running away with it. And I think this is where I was pushing the parliament to raise a motion on the use of the 5%. Besides the 5%, the companies have huge negative impact of their work on the communities. One, you have mentioned the oil pollution. My brothers and sisters in the diaspora, and especially those who come from Upper Nile region, can you believe a human being born without hands, deformed? Can you believe human being is born either with 3 hands? Can you believe sometimes human being is born without eye? The oil pollution is huge in our communities. The only thing that is not being seen as a big issue because the media coverage of the impact of the oil pollution on the communities and the impact of the oil pollution on the environment is not properly been covered by media. Why? Because of media has been suppressed not to cover it. We have some low ground officers who claim their national security, and some of them are just only informers. They tend to suppress. And the companies that are not South Sudanese, who are companies that are mainly foreign or multinational companies, are actually using those informers who claim to be national security to suppress media from reporting about the impact of their work. The negative implication of the companies is being so much covered by the companies in denying media access to the reality. So if you want to go to the sites of the oil wells, it's very tough. I'll give an example. I'm supposed to flow from Bentiu to Melekal using plane, but I decided to come on road mainly to observe the oil fields. My brother, the oil fields is so much discouraging. People are living around the water is polluted, and even the baskets of the oil chemicals are being used by our people for harvesting water that is being used to be consumed by the cattle. Imagine cattle get water from baskets that contain chemicals of the oil. So actually, the beef of those cattle are already polluted and then now eaten by human beings. And sometimes some of these cattle die because there's no proper veterinary service doctors on the ground, and there's no care from the companies against the oil pollution and the use of the chemicals and disposal of the chemical-related items like baskets that look like containers for water in the community. You come to us, cattle die, and people eat the cattle that die because people there feel pastoralists does not want to slaughter cattle, but they want to eat the dead cattle, and they know why these cattle die. So this is really terrible. There's a birds, there's a fish, they're fishing fish that are already oil polluted, and they're eating this fish. So all these have implications. And remember, what you call the quick environmental assessment is being dragged here and there. I know the Minister of Petroleum try his level best, the Minister of Environment try their level best, but sometimes the companies even suppress and bribed off some political leaders in terms of suppressing decisions on that. And sometimes they use our security institutions to suppress the pressure that are coming towards calling for accountability and transparency on commitment of the companies and the government in terms of oil pollution or environmental pollution or environmental impact that are so negative on the communities. So you come to realize this particular subject is being so much suppressed. And of course, I went a low profile. None of them knows me. I was able to talk to some of them. Some of them were able to confess that even the companies does not want even a citizen journalism to be around oil fields to collect the oil pollution. Why? Because they believe that some of the journalists come and cover themselves under citizens' journalism. Even some staff of the companies, some locations, they're not allowed to take pictures. They've been monitored, they've been tracked. So for me, that's the level of the oil pollution, being it in Melekal, being it in Bentiu, or being it in Pariang in the oil fields. So for me, that's really the impact. Now, let me give an example about the 3%, whether you talk at the side of Melekal or the side of Unity State or the side of the Pariang. At the side of the Pariang, at least I have seen an airstrip that is developed, and quite somehow I would say a semi-standard airstrip. And also I have seen merging structures of the administrative areas in terms of school structures and some structures that are coming up from Pariang. Somehow you can see some small amount of less than 5% indicators for the use of the 3% of the state development. But when it comes to Unity, where it has massive production, can you remember Unity Airstrip is not tarmac? Unity Airstrip have no shelter for passengers. I took a picture, I'm quite sure you might have seen that picture of mine with the yellow cap where I took close to a crashed plane. That is where I'm waiting. Yeah, that's where I'm waiting. It's a tree. Just I sit around that plane to wait there. And they're taxing 2,000 SSP from each ticket. That is a service for revenue. And there's not even a shelter, just pillars with the iron seats just to provide shade for passengers. It's not there. Passengers goes and sit down in the airstrip. And planes are landing while passengers are sitting outside. If it happened, God forbid, a plane overrun the railway, there'll be dead of passengers. So for me, that's the biggest, that you can't see the airstrip of Bentiu shows like it's an airstrip. That's why I asked the question, where is the 5%? And who is eating the 5%? Besides the oil pollution that we have talked about, the environmental implications, besides these, the floods in the region of Upper Nile, it is real. It is real. I wish I would have shared with you some of the photos that are in the flood. You find the stream or the road, what I can say, a small feeder road that connects Bentiu and Pariang is being flooded from both sides. And dikes were being used. Remember, dikes, you are suppressing the water. If you suppress the water too much, the water can break through. So if any amount of rain comes now, that potential link of a small feeder road between Bentiu and Pariang will cut off, and there'll be no any movement there. And that means it will impact negatively on the population. Right now, it impacts negatively on the commercial business vehicles moving around that road. They're trying to fix it. And one thing that is very funny, I've seen that you come to realize roads that are around the oil field normally are fixed when the rain is almost arriving. When rain season is almost approaching, then they start working. Where were they during the dry season so they can fix it with quality? Why are they waiting until rain season? So as I'm coming, they're fixing the road. So for me, that's really shows a sense of lack of responsibility that is going on there. So for me, that is it. And unfortunately, the awareness and the community sensitization on the implication of the oil pollution on our citizens who are not informed, who are ignorant, who are not learned, who have never known anything about the negative impact of the oil, is not going on. So the social corporates of the companies, you can't see on the ground, the companies working the oil. You can't see social corporates. That's one thing. Second thing, across the Upper Nile region, all in the oil fields, the local content is not there. Can you imagine companies are even hiring their own nationals that comes from their countries as engineers to repair their vehicles and their machinery for service? Can you imagine even restaurants, they cook for themselves? You see, you can't see a local content being practiced. And by local content, I refer, for example, their services are supposed to be locally provided, their repairing services are supposed to be locally provided, their medical services are supposed to be locally provided, fuel is supposed to be locally provided. They can't hire even drivers of trucks. You find most of them in Pariang are Eritreans. And when I ask the minister say, no, our youth, yes, of course, that is real. That gives us a justification that some of our youth are not prepared to take over those jobs because they need white-collar job. They need to be office managers, bodyguards, and private secretaries of politicians, but they don't want to become as a drivers. But for me, that's not the reality. The reality is that orientation is not going on. So there's no anybody in charge at the state level and administrative area that take it. And that's why I challenge the ministers of youth, being in Melakal, being in Unity, or being in Pariang, is that it's a responsibility to orient the youth to take over the jobs of the local content, because we're losing the local content on the ground. So for me, that is a situation. That situation is applied in Melakal, is applied in Unity, is applied in Pariang. That's one thing I want to make. But also there's emerging pockets, besides this issue of oil pollution in the region of Upper Nile, besides the lack of transparency and proper and adequate use of the 5% in Upper Nile, besides the question of the companies are not providing social corporate responsibility and there's no local content in Upper Nile, there are politicians who are right now in Upper Nile are planting for deadly communal violence. I went to Manga. Manga is a disputed area between Pariang and Unity. If you see the situation there, is really elite motivated violence. And this is have a direct link with the upcoming elections, because people have to show allegiance, people have to demarcate constituencies. And when there's this element of opening oil refinery in Unity for domestic consumption, there's a tension between Unity State and Pariang on who exactly is in charge. That's something merging up. In Upper Nile, the access to the eastern bank of the Nile is something that we should not ignore. It's an area of tension. It may sound silent, but it's an area of tension potentially that may merge. The issue of also the border of Abiemnum and Mayom in Unity State. So for me, there are politicians who want to fuel violence, and specifically with now the waves of the supports that are going on at national and state levels, some politicians want to create communal violence to retain status quo that they belong to, or to show allegiance to certain politicians so that they are protected. So for me, yes, that is what I have seen in Upper Nile region. That's my point of disappointment. And I remember when I came back, when I started making some statements, I received quite a number of threats from leaders that come from those regions, and they feel like I'm exposing them. But of course, as an activist, I have no option. My only option is to hold them accountable, and my option is to question them. Where is the impact of the 5% of the oil? Where is the social corporate responsibility of the companies? Where is the environmental quick impact assessment? Where is the role of the companies in helping community structures to sensitize our communities to understand the impact of the oil pollution? And to what level are we marking areas that are oil polluted, where I can tell people don't access, cattle not access, and fish in that area don't eat, don't fish them. Children don't swim in those waters. Where is that responsibility? And who is in charge of that? Where is the national government? Where is the state government? And then the next thing you ask is, why are you investing on communal violence to retain power or to become famous, to be known? So for me, that's the problem. Melekal does not look like an oil producing area. Unit does not look like an oil producing area. Pariang is improving, but of course, it's still in Pariang. Also, there's some areas that does not look into that. And there's these cliques of politicians. Now, if you look at the region of Upper Nile, people work in grouping. In each party, there's a groups. There's a multiple groups in each party. IU have their own IO internal groups. SPLM have their own internal groups. So I have their own internal groups. It happened, which group take the power? The one who took the power right now, it shapes everything. And most of these groups are self-centered. They're not really for the development of the state. And you can find sometimes government like the one of Upper Nile, which is a bit developmental, but also he faces stress from people who does not want the development to continue. So for me, our sons and daughters' future in the Upper Nile region require a national call for accountability. It requires a national call for demanding the use of the oil revenue, specifically the contribution that goes to state development and community development. We must all stand up. And that's why I was pushing the parliament that they should raise a motion. They have raised a motion on the oil pollution. That's among the ministers. I said, don't limit on the oil pollution, even question the 5%. And I remember the first deputy speaker in the Council of State, Honorable Mary Ayen, who came from Ruang administrative area. She pushed it harder, and I remember she was threatened by one of our leaders. So for me, those are things that we need to really talk about it. And those are the issues that shapes what we call the South Sudan we want. If we don't talk about it, then we can't expect the South Sudan that we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edmund. It's really heartbreaking to see how South Sudanese leaders don't care about their citizen, well-being citizen. Because the oil pollution is one of the environmental disasters that can kill the human being. And you mentioned some of the cases happening in Unity State in Ruang area. Like the mother can give birth with the baby that have 3 hands and also other stuff going on. That is the unhealthy issues, and that caused by oil pollution. And the leaders of the country, they don't care. What they care about is their pocket, and they are not care about the well-being of citizens, their health. Edmund, who can be held accountable for this? Is it the company, oil companies, or the leaders in Unity State or international or government of South Sudan? Why is it these companies, they know very well that the oil pollution is a problem, is a healthy problem, and they still allowed that to happen in Unity State, so that the innocent people are dying from it? Is it because they see that they are not taking any cleaning to clean up the oil spill, because people, they see that the leaders in the country, they don't care? So why is it they don't take the action? And why the United Nations in South Sudan are not, they see it and they quiet. They don't do anything about it. What their work in the country. And I see that the United Nations, they already grant another mandate to stay in the country for the next year. So tell us who is held accountable for this and what the action that will be taken so that this company can be sued, so that they can clean this mess, this oil spill in the area. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I've sent you some photos I want you to display to the to the viewers later on as we continue our discussion, and I'll send you some more where you can see how our people are living in the middle of the water. The pictures that I took when I was coming from Pariang to Bentiu. But who is to be held accountable? First, it's a primary responsibility of our political leaders at the level of the national government, at the level of the state government. What I have realized through my interaction and my observation on the ground, one, there's a huge compromise from our political leaders, right from national level and state level, with the bribes that they gain from the companies, because the companies provide them bribes. Yes, if you see, this is the way how people are keeping firewood. Imagine, that's how firewood is kept in the middle of the water for people who
Maybe
are living.
It looks like a swamp.
Yeah, look at like it's a complete swamp. It's a complete swamp, and that's how our people, our community, are keeping firewood as if there's no oil produced in that area. That's really big issue. That's something that I would like to share with you. So for me, with regard to your question, who should be held accountable first? And that is how the truck. I took that truck. I was behind the truck, and this is the feeder road I was saying is between Bentiu and Pareng, and that's when it rains. Both sides are flooded. If you look really, both sides are flooded, and it's really very terrible. That's the image of the truck, and so they can show the reality on the ground. And I'm trying to look for a picture I want to share where a woman is on a board and she's walking in the middle of the water, trying to create a livelihood for her children. And I ask her, why are you doing? She says she's trying to create a livelihood for her children, and she's in the middle of the water with a boat carrying food items. These are the structures of the shelters of communities whom we assume that they have received 2% of the oil money in Upper Nile region. And this is a sample that can shows you across the region of Upper Nile. That's what's happening. And that's what I want to share. So if you see this tells you very clear, where is it? So in terms of your question, who should we hold accountable on those particular situations? First, primarily is our national government institutions, the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Petroleum, and the Ministry of Health. And even, I will go further, the MPs who sit in those relevant committees in the national parliament who claim that they represent our citizens in the region of Upper Nile. And remember, the oil pollution is not an Upper Nile issue. It is a national issue. We don't treat it as an issue of oil producing states. No, it's a national issue. A death of a single citizen in the region of Upper Nile is a death of a South Sudanese. Any life facing any single citizen in Upper Nile it's a risk for South Sudanese. That's first, the ideology you want to have. So the MPs are too silent. And some of the MPs have come to realize that even they have been bribed by these companies. So the companies are using fraud, are using bribes to silence political leaders from raising political questions that make them exercise their responsibility in holding the companies accountable. There's a huge compromise. That's one thing. And some of the political leaders that come from these communities undermine the application of the law that prescribed engagement around the oil sector, being it environmental quick assessment, being it the percentage, so the companies took advantage of the vulnerability of our political leaders that they accept bribes, whether from South Sudanese companies or from South Sudanese political leaders in the executive, being in state national level, or being in even South Sudanese security institutions that are supposed to take responsibility in observing the companies, whether they commit themselves to the call of the legislations that are enacted in the country towards the investment in the oil sector. So for me, first person we should blame is our government officials at their various levels, because the companies took their advantage. The companies took the lack of compromises, the lack of compliance, which the government have not imposed it, and the compromises that the leaders are offering. So the companies fail. Imagine, when I was coming on the road, I found an Eritrean driver who is driving reckless. When I questioned him, why are you doing this? You don't know the rules of this country? He said, what's the rule of this country? I can undermine them by paying money. Imagine that's what he told me. So it means cash make us to compromise the application of our laws. And this is the biggest issue of the oil sector in Upper Nile region. And unfortunately, people who may come in some of the oil national institutions like either NilePet or Dar Petroleum, who are interested, or even the ministries, who are interested in imposing what the law is demanding, they don't stay long in the power. They change, or they reshuffle, or they threaten, or they transfer. from where they. So when you become a nationalist, you become keen asking these questions. Is a big. When I was in Bentiu, I keep on moving the night hours and going, checking what's happening, what's going on. I landed on someone whom is a security person, whom I don't know pronounce the name. When he landed, it was me. He said, my brother, what made you to be here? We are not aware you are here. If we are aware you are here, we could have kicked you even not to enter. We know what they're doing here. I told my friend, I'm a South Sudanese. Now, if you see the youth are more into the culture of uniform. They want to, if you talk to them, everybody want to become a soldier. Actually, even there's a portion of youth that are admiring the country to return back to violence because that's where they gain. Because they can loot, they can rape, they can, so like they feel like when there's no violence, they're not gaining. They're embracing violence to come back. So who do we blame here? For me, primarily, we start blaming our leaders at their various capacity, those who have direct responsibility in the issues of the oil investment, being it the oil pollution, environmental quick assessment, or being the use of the 5%, because we don't blame anybody. It's our own leaders making. And that's what I'm saying. The disaster our communities are facing in Melaka, it is not a natural made, it is a man-made. Imagine this challenge. The whole region is facing flood. And if you see the recent IGAD alert on the flood, all Upper Nile region was mentioned that they are expecting in this upcoming rain season, they're going to experience flood. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about preparation for the floods that have been alerted or the alarm will be raised by IGAD. Nobody cares about it. The national government, nobody cares about it. The MPs is now, when we start putting pressure, they start raising emotions. And I will tell you, even we have to go in providing facts on the motions that will be raised in the parliament. And as I speak now, there's a motion in the parliament summoning the relevant ministers to answer questions around the oil pollution. And that's why I was pushing the parliament, go beyond oil pollution. You ask the 5%, how is it being used? And try to get the figure and how the figure was being used. Because my experience on the ground is that the figures are not being bribed for people. So for me, primarily is the government. The company says they have social corporate responsibility. But who is supposed to demand them to commit them to social corporate responsibility? It comes back to our political leaders at their various capacity. So for me, the oil production in Upper Nile State, it's not a blessing to our communities. It is a curse to our communities. Why it's a curse? It's a man-made curse. Why is it a man-made curse? Because we don't care about the lives of our own brothers and sisters from the region of Upper Nile, because we like to eat the money, even if that means consequences of claiming the lives of our citizens, imposing climate or environmental pollution that we have seen, how women are giving birth to children, how cattle are dying. We don't care about that as long as we're getting from the money. So for me, it is our leaders to take responsibility. And the state parliaments are silent, because I investigated how many motions are raised at state parliament on these particular issues. If the national parliament can't raise, state parliament can't raise, because some of them are threatened. And as I said, the companies are using influential leaders to threaten, and they're using even people from the security sector, being in the national security, being the military intelligence, being the military, being the police, being the CIDs. Companies are bribing them, but companies are buying them to threaten those particular leaders that want to follow, or journalists that want to follow, or youth or women who came up as a movement that want to do check and balance on the commitment of the companies into what is required by the law. Now you come to realize the people who made the law are bribed to undermine the law. What does that mean? So for me, that is the big problem, really.
Yeah, it's just sad, Edmund, to see our people. They don't care about the life of the innocent children, women. It's really they choose money above from their citizen. So what the work, if you are say that you are a government, you are not take care of your own citizen. What makes you a government? And use a threat, because if you see something is not at be fixed, you need to use a law or a power to threat that person. And instead, you see that your people are suffering. It's real. Before I move to the next topic, regarding about OPC camp in Unity State, what is the environment there? So I see that there's a lot of people are still remain and staying in the OPC camp. So the rainy season is coming, and also according about the election is coming. How is it? How the election people in the Unity State enough checking about the election, and what is the between the government and United Nations. What are their mission or their goal to move these people living in a POC camp to return to their own homes? Okay, and those people who left their home during the war in 2013, are their area, their houses, are they there to return back home? If their people are occupied their houses, why the government have these people to leave these people of property, and these people can return back home instead of living in a POC camp? So thank you, go ahead.
Thank you very much. If I can use the region of Upper Nile with the case study of unity in terms of adequate standard of living, and this adequate standard of living we can connect to the election, adequate standard of living we can connect into reducing people the remaining independence in POC camps as you have shown it. To be honest, and specifically if I speak to Unity State, our citizens there are facing more than 3 shocks that are facing them. And these shocks are really shocks. Shock number 1, it is the climate change implications of the flood. And this is in the face of the violence that has happened in 2013 and 2016. Shock number 2 is the oil pollution that is affecting them there. And of course, the oil pollution, you can connect it together with health in terms of exposure to snake bites, mosquitoes, malarias, diarrhea, all this. You link them with the oil pollution and the environmental challenge that face them. The third shock is the ongoing communal violence and the violations of the transitional security arrangement among the military, being it the SSPDF and the SPLAIU. They keep recurring of displacement in those areas. Now, these 3 shocks, and maybe we have more than the 3 shocks. Let's talk about the POC. The people who live the POC by then, they ran out of the 2013 crisis. They get settled. Because United Nations have to provide protection of civilians. And that's within the UN Charter around the responsibility to protect. UN can't see citizens dying because of the negative implications of political disagreement among its citizens. So the POC was there. Now, those people who are in the POC, they ran from 2013 crisis, they're there. Even if they have the interest to go in places like Unity to leave the POC, some of them massively, their areas are flooded. There's no highland. The only area which end up as a highland is a POC because dike were built around the POC for water not to access. So their areas of return are flooded, are full of the flood. That's the second shock. And it is flooded, besides the flooding, there's oil pollution. Those water of the floods have brought in all the chemicals of oil from far distance to the closest locations of the communities. That's the second shock. And in this, there's a recurrent communal armed violence among the communities. And as I've said, what happened in Mayandi recently, close to Koch, between the SSPDF and the IO, that still makes citizens lose trust and confidence on whether their safety and their security will be provided by the fighting parties, which it undermines the security arrangement. So all these create a pressure on citizens, and all this create a fear on citizens not to have trust and confidence to leave the POC, though we are aware that they can leave the POC in a voluntary manner. Some of them want to go because the amount of food they get in the POC, the land space they can, some of them are farmers. Not everybody is pastoralists, keep cattle. Some of them even have cattle, but they are still farmers. But where will they farm in the face of the floods? Where will they go in the face of these floods? And as I've shown you the track, you have seen the houses, they're displaced by the floods. Then the smallest land in Bentiu town is overstretched by people who are displaced by the floods in the town. You can see these are displacements of people who are displaced by the floods, and some of them are displaced for example, if you go to Malacca, some of them are displaced from the POC. So the land space, yeah, this is a truck. Look at the front of the truck. Look at how people are keeping firewood. So where will they return? Those shocks all affects them. And that's why we're saying the best we need is our political leaders need to take their responsibility. We should not blame UN. We should not blame AU. We should not blame IGAD. We should primarily blame our political leaders that have the responsibility to make a decision of creating an environment. Let me give an example. All these 5 years, It was 2 days ago or 3 days ago, His Excellency President and His Excellency First Vice President met to finalize the unification of the forces and to roll out phase 2 of the unification of the forces. You might have seen the picture of where they met, 2 of them, and they shake hands. The question asked, why all these number of years such meetings are not being held? Why not within the first months or the 2 months of the rolling out agreement? Why is it after 5 years? And why is it when the country is almost going towards elections? So all this now, if you bring elections here in a place like Bentiu where it's flooded, or other parts of the country that are flooded, some of the constituents are flooded. Where are they going to vote? Where is the polling station going to be? And the small space in the POC, how many polling stations are going to put it there? So these are all critical questions. And nobody's talking about the implication of the floods. Nobody's talking about election in the face of the floods. How do you demarcate constituency? How do you go about with it? State parliament are quiet because people like to maintain the status quo. I will tell you, my brother Abraham, when we talk about the elections, in the face of all these challenges, actually some politicians are using these challenges not to really have elections be held. Yes, this picture, if you look at this picture, we wish this picture could have come either in the 2nd month or the 3rd month. And one thing that I have discovered, that even if our leaders, His Excellency President, His Excellency First Vice President, have the best interest to bring peace and stability to the country, their subordinates that around them are communicating them always negative messages. This is something I've discovered recently. That people who are close to His Excellency President, people who are close to His Excellency First Vice President are giving them wrong information. They're not giving right information. They like to manipulate the power of these 2 leaders, you know, and they keep them as hostage to their negative messaging, antagonistic messaging, and they don't provide accurate information. If you see some of the leaders who are close to this principle, when they speak as if they don't love South Sudan, as if they're not in South Sudan, but they're enjoying the V8 that are bought by our oil money, and look at the life of the communities where the oil is being produced, living in an IOM plastic sheet as a shelter, and they are witnessing production of oil. Is that not an insult on us? That's a big insult on us. So for me, everything requires our political leadership to be proactively and to do things within their capacity. Some of their actions does not require money. Meetings does not require money. Decision making does not require money. They have enough money. They're in the spaces. Okay? So if you look at the images of this office and turn the image of this office to the image of the shelters in the communities, look at the big difference and question yourself. What is going on? Okay? This is the way how political leadership has been enjoyed. And look at the people whom they claim they are ruling. Look at the shelters they're living in. Look at the house they're living in. And here you're saying we are oil producing country. So for me, everything is centered. Yes, exactly. Look at these houses. And these houses are located in an area where oil is produced. V8s are being bought. Children are being sent to school, either outside the country or in Europe, while the people who are close to the oil production are facing this. And those who are very far enjoy. What type of misery is our communities facing on the ground? So for me here, what is required? The way forward is that the parliamentarians who come from those communities should be the champions, and the rest of the parliamentarians should back up them. I wish we would have a proper documentary, but obviously with such debate we're in now, anybody that the journalists that are going to be documentary will be at risk because the pressure we're generating now is too much on the political leadership. So for me, it's a question of political leadership. And what is required from political leadership, my brother? Our politicians need to change their attitudes. The attitudes of the liberation culture of the country should not be the same attitudes to be applied in building the state. Our attitudes of confronting by then Sudan regime shouldn't be the same attitude we want to build with the state of South Sudan. These are totally different things. Still, we have over 60% of political leaders who have come through the struggle history. They want to apply the political attitude of the struggle history in running the government and in building the state and the nation of South Sudan. That's not much. And that's what sometimes I like what Aleu was saying when he was a governor of Warap, when he said, throughout his life, he's taught to destroy. He was not taught how to develop. So that's why I'm saying the behaviors of the destruction should be stepped aside, and now you bring a behaviors of development. And I think that makes sense. I have seen it in Apana. I've come across leaders that confronted me as if I represent the UN or I represent the Western world. They level me, they accuse me. And besides this, we have our brothers in the diaspora. When you start questioning and when you start doing other things, they start blaming you, also leveling you. I've recently got someone who say I've got the loan of the, there's a statement I made in iRadio that we can go for election with population census or without population census. Then somebody sent a message that actually maybe Edmund have got the share of the 13 billion from UAE. I started wondering, I started looking at them. When I was pushing pressure on the communities of Zanda and Balanda over Tombra, somebody wrote a very long message threatening the organization, support, threatening me, and a similar thing happened before. I've received some threats when I'm talking about Twitch and Ngok Denka, and look at the situation that's going on now. So there's some people who are obsessed by using violence as a language of communicating, which is wrong. So for me, this is where we need to change our political attitudes. Going completely negative benefit nobody. Have options. Yes, we may disagree, we may have differences, but confrontation is not an approach. Violence is not the approach. Restriction is not the approach. The approach is that, let us say honestly, if you see what is called today great nations, those great nations, their citizens have taken responsibility of speaking to each other, not using violence, not confrontation, and looking for best options, and they build consensus. So what is happening in Unity State or in Bentiu? And actually, let me tell you, the POCs become attractive area in state like Unity. The floods, if it increases, people are going to go back to POC. Regardless whether it is UN attraction or no UN attraction, people are going to go to the POC. As the communal violence continues, people are going to go to the POC. As we're heading towards elections and political leaders are championing violence, like what happened in Manga between Weng and Unity, and you've seen the exchange of the statements. All those statements is loaded with nothing except messages of war, threats from Unity versus Weng, from Weng versus Unity. If you see the violation going on in Mayandit between the SSPDF and the IO, as long as those continue, people lose trust and confidence on the elections and they move back to the POC. Though we have seen the latest mandate of UN, it's actually it is a food in a golden plate before the political leaders. If you look at the new mandate of UN for the next 1 year until 30th May 2025, it's focusing on what? It's focusing on election logistics, capacity building, election security. So it's all around the electoral process. If our political leaders really take responsibility, they need to make quick decisions. They can get that assistance. And they keep on blaming international communities very far from us and helping us. The question is not the assistance from international community. The question is your timely, genuine, accurate decisions that attract the sympathizers and the friends of South Sudan to come and help you. But these decisions are so much manipulated by those around the leaders who are supposed to make those decisions. So for me, both parties principle, have wrong people around them that either fuel them on tribal line or fuel them with lies or tell the leaders what they feel the leaders want to hear, but not the reality. Some of them are making statements, sometimes you laughed. Somebody will tell you, we are okay with the agreement. Ah, brother, are we really okay with the agreement or because you have a political title? The V8 you said in it make you to make sure that you are okay with the agreement. So for me, these are really big issues that our political leaders and elites need to cover. And of course, with the diaspora, I know some diaspora are so fond of fueling violence. There's nothing. I'm quite sure even this speech we are doing now, some of them start insulting. Look at that stupid, look at that idiot, that bribe, that they will do that because they believe violence is option. And now I'm trying to map out the behaviors of diaspora, and I want to rate it percentage. I think there's some diasporas who does not think about coming back home, but they smile when they see death is going on the ground. They smile when they contribute in fueling violence. They smile when they can insult. But of course, things are not right. But also, we must confront those who are there without fueling violence. So these are some of the things. I remember 2 days ago, I was interacting with someone at the power. I was telling them, please, you release Callisto. Why do you keep him in? If he commit a crime, bring him to court of law. And the more you keep him in, the more you actually give other people an agenda to mobilize. So, and I gave them indication. Look at the level of aggression that people are planting. The political leaders are planting on citizens. I don't know whether it is fake or it's not fake, whether it is real or it's not real. One of a comedian A comedian with the title of Feel Free is not declaring a movement. If that happened real or it's not real, but if that happened, because we're asking, is that a comedian or that's a real or what is it? But if it happened real, that tells you the level of frustration people have. That even now everybody believe being in uniform is the only way I can speak. So should we all go to uniform? And that's the only way we can build the nation of South Sudan? How do we show the international community who we are, the friends that stood with us in all the struggle? How will they view that? So for me, the primary responsibility lies with us South Sudanese collectively, but primarily with our current political leaders in the political parties. They need to really change their attitudes and feel and care about the nation.
Thank you, Edmund. You are absolutely right, because the leaders need to take the lead to care for their people instead of care for themselves. And I've seen people, if people are wearing the uniform, and that's what people want to do, and then chaos will continue in the country. Civilian will be continue to suffer. That is really not good. The leader need to change the way they're doing. President Salva Kiir need to do something. I see that he's changing a lot of. I have seen majority of the office in Jonglei State has been changed, and his office too as a president. I see there's a lot of degree going on. Bring new people in. The question is, these new people are taking office. Are they going to do the same thing the previous people are doing, or they will change? I don't know. So let's move to the next question regarding about the. I have seen the report last week about the incident happened in the violent breakout in Tupra, in Western Equatorial area. So what is the reason? What caused this violent breakout in Tumpra? I see that even one of the pastors lost his life. So can you give us an update about who is behind this attack?
Okay. Thank you very much. The situation of Tombra is like any other situation in the country, but Tombra, of course, is unique. And Tombra's situation is completely a political elites competition of Zande and Balanda in showing muscles. And this elite is across the board, from political sector, from those of them who are working in NGOs, from those of them who are in the churches, from those of them who are in the diaspora. The call for accountability and justice in Tombra is more ethnic lined between the interests of the Zande and interests of the Balandas. There are quite a number of incidences, and I think I've spoke about it immediately after. Maybe let me give a bit of literature. When I was there on the ground for almost 2 weeks, we were able to secure a 2 years relative peace. Later on, I was asked to pull a bit aside and the church take over a conference. Religious leaders took over from the role I was been playing. And of course, I step aside, believing faith-based leaders can play a big role. But the church processes almost 1 year couldn't go through. And I've been observing, I've been watching, because I don't talk about it, because these are faith-based leaders that their spiritual mandate is to ensure peace and stability. But there are too much politics around the church peace conferences. In the middle of designing the church peace conferences, extrajudicial killing is going on, target killings is going on against the Balanda, against the Zande in exchange. The law enforcement agencies are not responding adequately on incidences. And if I give the answer to the pastor was threatened, and even he reported to the police before he lost his life that he received a threat. But the police does not care because they have affiliation to one of the ethnic group. So what triggered is that incidences who have been happening, nobody is being held accountable, and nobody is sort of like taking responsibility to talk about it. And of course, I step back because we've been asked, let the church take the lead to create a conference. So we step back as an organization. The worst incident started when the governor bodyguards, remember there's an incident where governor's bodyguards were killed. It just ended up like that. Nobody held accountable, no investigation, no nothing. And there's a recurrent targeted killings going on from one person, from one ethnic group to another ethnic group. And both ethnic groups are not clean from committing atrocities against each other. None of them can say we're clean. All of them are committing atrocities against each other. So we've been watching this situation. Then later on, certain class of political elites feel the peace conference is posting their lives into threat. with an assumption that one of the ethnic group is well prepared to use that peace conference to eliminate members of other ethnic group. Which for me, the nightmare is that also the church couldn't issue a strong statement about the postponement of the conference. And prior to the conference to be held, there's a quite number of, as I said, extrajudicial target killings that are going on. Zande against Balanda, Balanda against Zande. Then later on is the incident of the killing of the bodyguards of the governor, and of course tension continue. Now resulted to an incident where a person was killed, okay, from a Zande, and then later on continue, Balanda was killed. Then it worsened when the group of the pastor get lost or get missing. Things escalated. And as we speak now, there's a women's center and there's a compound by then designed to be an area of the Ministry of Environment, which is supposed to be now a county, supposed to be line ministries, have been turned into protection of civilian sites, turned into camp. So people are there in the camp who are in those locations of the line ministry space and in the women empowerment or women's center and then the Catholic Church, they have returned back. They're displaced and they're caught up at the moment where they're returning to go and farm. And now imagine they're displaced prior farming. Now everybody's running away. Military were deployed there, but still, as besides military have been deployed there, we still see targeted killing against Balanda, against Zande. Targeted killing is still going on. So what's happening in Tombra? Tombra, nobody can be blamed. The situation of Tombra is that some elites are fueling the tension on ethnic line of Balanda and Zande. And that's why I feel the political leadership at national level need to hold certain political elites accountable. Because this is the problem. As election is going to come, Tombra is going to be hotspots between the two ethnic groups, as equal as Aneth between the Twitch and then the Ngok. As Manga is coming again between the Dinka in Pariang and the Nuer in Unity. Eastern bank of the Nile in Upper Nile is going to be tension between the Padang and the Cholo. You go to Kapoy, you go to Eastern Equatoria, the question of Lafon Lopa is going to be tension. Okay? So there are quite a number of pockets of hotspots that if you throw them into an environment of elections, they become more deadly. Can then ministers at the national level, at the states level, can the governors, Council of States have tried their level best to summon governors to take responsibilities. Governors will come, will make good statements, but their counterparts at the different levels, either national MP or a national minister or a director general or undersecretary or somebody working in a very influential NGO, somebody in the security institution, national security, military, police, will fuel the violence, undermine what the governor told the Council of States. And the capacity of the Council of States in following up the governors is weak. I have to be honest. Because the Council of States is not strong. And sometimes the executive are not responding to the recommendation of the Council of States. Council of States may tell the executives, we need to see this person go on. This person should leave. But the executive, because there's a favor coming from such interest, they don't respond at the national level. So for me, these are mixed up of lack of responsibility. So that's why you see the situation in Tombra is escalating again. And as election is coming, we're going to see similar deadly situations across the country. Those pockets are going to be many. So for me, that's what escalates Tombra. And now imagine we reach to a level of losing life of a priest. And Vatican is asking, where is the priest? So that for me become a really big shame. That become a big shame. And for me, those who undercover, they look like peacemakers, but internally they are fueling violence. They need to really get salvations. They need to be changing their attitudes and stand for peace. And as I said, people like us who come in, of course, for me, I'm a nationalist. I don't care whether ethnic or anything. What I care is the stability of our communities. When we speak out, we receive threats. Anybody can sit anywhere, issue statement. As long as the person does not conform to me, I don't consider that threat as a big threat. Because I know there are so many spoilers of peace than champions of peace. So the spoilers always will do any leveling. They will threaten you, they will warn you, and some of them are actually politically motivated. And some of them are actually the opponent of the other side. If you talk about this side, the opponent of the other side will use that to make you confront the side you're talking about them. So don't keep on talking about their protection or their safety. So for me, this is the situation we're in now in Tombora. And it's going to be very tough. Now there's a completely loss of trust on the peace process. And it's really going to give the church a hard time to convince the people to move there. And there are some certain political leaders need to be removed out of the system, so that at least it allows peace to prevail. If there's, as long as they are still in the system, peace will never prevail. Some of them are at national level, some of them are at state level, some of them are at a county level, and they stay to stand to protect the community, and they actually smile when their opponent keep on losing lives. And some of them, of course, retain power by sending violence to go ahead. So for me, it is a responsibility of the political elites to open a genuine dialogue. And the tension on Tombora is not going to be for short term. Why? Because also there's a manipulation of history. Some people want to manipulate history for their own gain. You know, and this culture of having administrative areas is becoming another thing. The question of hangover of the creation of more states, whether it have been 27 states or 32 states, is still a hangover. Some politicians believe that's the only way. And elections coming, they're going to use that more. How are you going to vote in Tombora if you look at yourselves from an ethnic line of Balanda and Zande? While my assessment is that the common massive population of Zande and Balanda that have intermarriages have no problem. These crises were imposed on them by the elites, as equal as the situation in Aneth, as equal as the situation is going to happen in Eastern Bank of Apana. So for me, these all conflict are politically motivated, simply because also authorities does not hold the subordinates accountable. So for me, really, that's a nightmare. And I'm a bit worried whether that situation will come quickly to a solution. I will be traveling to the ground. I'll be on the ground. Of course, for me, normally I like to be in the direct locations where the crises are, and we confront ourselves with those guys and we see how we promote peace. But for me, it's really becoming monotonous and it's becoming stressful. And it shows that actually we are lacking people who care about peace and stability in the country. But we have more people in power that like to destabilize the country and believe on violence. That is the best way of speaking out or resolving their differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Edmund. Yeah, violence is not a solution. If you said that you need to supporting a violence in the country so that you can be in power, that's what. At the end of the day, you will be doing that for a short time, but the long run, you will face it. And I was wondering that the government, these unified forces, what are their work? Because they and you identified the hardest part. So why is it the government using these unified forces to put those hardest part so that the peace to contain the violence going on in those areas that there is a violence going on? So that's the use of the unified forces. Why you unify forces and then you are not deployed them the area that where they need there is insecurity going on, and then you say that we are unified forces, and what are they going to do with those unified forces? And the country is still in the mess. My next discussion regarding about we have been seeing in social media for the last few couple of weeks or few weeks regarding about the South Sudan government borrowed $13 billion from the Bay oil company to exchange for 20 years of oil repayment. When I'm seeing this, I say, wow, what is this? 20 years to exchange of $13 million. This thinking about, when I read this on Edmund Yakani, I think about the future of my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about the future of my grandkid, if I have a grandkid later on. Why is it you put the debt of the country toward the next generation to come? This can tell. I don't know if this is true, but the way that I read it in social media and other media outlet, that's really true. And I listened to one of the MPs talk to iRadio, and he said that the MPs are not aware about it. They are unaware about it. Okay, this huge budget, this huge bill, this is a huge bill that should go direct to the MPs, and the both house have to vote for it, approve it. Okay, where the Ministry of Finance, which is the former now, Dr. Bach, So why is it he take this in his own to borrow $30 million from the oil company in the Bay without knowledge of the MPs, what they work on MPs here? So how, and also you exchange $13 million for 20 years of oil repayment for 20 years. And that will be, it's not even 20 years, their profit. It will be at even 50 years repayment. So is it true, Edmund, is this the country that we want? Now our leaders, is this what they doing that destroy the country? That destroy the country. And they allow the foreigners companies looting the resources. This is a mind blowing. These leaders are doing this kind. That's not acceptable. So what do you say about this? Is it this true $30 million the government borrowed from the oil company in the Bay? So go ahead.
Let me start with an African proverb. There's an African proverb which says, "There's no smoke without fire." If you see any smoke, there must be fire somewhere. And in South Sudan, rumors that comes out, sometimes it contains certain amount of facts at the end of the day. If you keep on them rumors, so South Sudan rumors is likely turned to be true. Whatever comes in South Sudan as a rumors will begin as a rumors, but at the end you come to realize that it's confirmed, it is true. I personally engage and I approach some few leaders. And because of these, I received 3 threats because of investigating these particular concerns. Close people to the leadership have told me this is not right, this is not correct, they have not gone for it, this is not true, and they will look at it. And because of that pressure, the Deputy Minister of Information, Dr. Jacob, denied and says South Sudan have never committed themselves to that. That's after pressure. People like us pushing. And of course, we pushed the newly appointed official spokesperson of the parliament, who was before your guest here, Oliver Mori. He is now the spokesperson of the parliament. And remember, he was with us in the show here. We have been crashing ourselves about the elections. Oliver Mori, we push him so hard, and everybody have to come out and say, the parliament is not aware of such a deal, and such a deal have never come to the parliament, and they have never had that the Council of Ministers have approved that amount of money. And of course, if you look into all the Council of Ministers meeting, before this document comes out, there's nothing like this in one of the Council of Ministers meeting that resolutions were being made. The question comes, how was this deal been reached? And that's why the best way is that per now still, we consider it as a rumor, as long the Ministry of Finance didn't come officially. The government have come official in terms of the Minister of Deputy Minister of Information, but that's not enough. The Parliament have said we have never had that. That's not enough. The best way is that the Parliament should summon the Minister of Finance to inform the country, is this true or not? And by the way, such information, and this is quite some of your audience, some of your listeners and the viewers are close linked to the government. I'm quite sure they're following us. And even some of them might be at the highest authority, they're following us. I would like to use this platform. If this information, it is not a true information, if it's a fake information, already it have security implications. What are the security implications? 1, how long soldiers have been staying, not been paid with money? And such documents comes out officially. How many months have the civil servants stay without any salaries, and such amount of money is coming out? Now, even one of our oil entity, Nilepet, reduced the staff salary officially by 50%, and such deals are going out. Such information, it is a very fueling information for people to believe that actually the incumbent system does not have any interest for the citizens. And I think this is where the leadership of the country need to come out boldly and inform the nation. Is this a real deal or is it not a real deal? If it's a real deal, what's the next way forward after being leaked? If it's not a real deal, how can they call it off? And that's why we believe it's still the parliament have a big role to play in cross-examining this information. Yes, the parliament can say we don't work with rumors, but they need to investigate. They need to sit down and look at it. This is one thing. Secondly, on what basis were the calculation being done to be equivalent to 20 years? And which particular committee of experts were engaged in this? And for me, there's a two ways to confirm. And I don't know whether it is it's a unified interest, because remember, Petroleum Ministry is under IO, Ministry of Finance is under IG. If this would have been a statement on, you remember when there's these rumors coming that they already have reached consensus for extending the period between the IO and the IG. You remember? There's an agreement between React and Salva that already they're going to extend the transitional period between President, His Excellency President, and His Excellency First Vice President. Both sides didn't take 72 hours. I've been following. Both sides have not taken 72 hours. Automatically, they issue counter statements. There's no deal like that. We have not reached that deal. They didn't take them long. But now this is a money around oil. One ministry is IO control, the Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of Finance is IG. We have never seen any statements coming. Maybe this is a unified interest that they're gaining out of it. But we wish also Ministry of Petroleum to tell us, have they ever seen such documents that the oil is already pre-sold with the borrowing of such loan? And of course, many people that are at a very influential position, some of them are told me very clear, Edmund, this deal is not real. This deal is not real. But as an African proof of say, there's no smoke with that one, with that fire. Okay. And I think there's an official statement still required from the government, apart from the Deputy Minister of Information speaking to a single journalist, because the only media house that published the denial of the government that this is not a real deal officially, through the word of the Deputy Minister of Information, Dr. Jacob, it's only Sudan Post. iRadio brought in the position of the parliament. We are not informed, we are not aware, we have never had something like that. But I think there's a need for the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Petroleum to come public and prove to the nation that this thing is a rumor. Now, if it's a rumor, next question comes. Where were those stamps that were used in the papers being obtained from? What is safety and security of our official national stamps? Because those stamps are not individual stamps. Those are national stamps of big national interests. How are they obtained to be played around with? If we're using artificial intelligence, let them prove to us that, look, artificial intelligence were being used in manipulating this document. But then to prove to us that yes, it's an artificial intelligence. So for me, the silence of the executive institutions that have responsibility in clarifying or clearing the air against this document, they need to come out timely. And that's why I'm keep appealing, even on voluntary basis, let Honorable Minister of Finance and Minister of Petroleum come in a joint statement. Is this a lie or this is true? And if it's a true, can they accept it is true, but it's leaked out? We're still in a process, how the process look like. And where is the legal framework for such borrowings in terms of how do we go for such borrowings? What does the law say? And why is the law being violated? Who is behind those violations of the law, the requirement of the law? So for me, those are some of the big things that really our leaders need to show the nation. And this is really annoying, and it's become a talk of the street. I was in a tea place, somebody was taking a tea. Someone said, like, I'm taking this tea today because already our 20 years tea is sold out through the oil. Imagine the joke. Some say, let me take the tea today because the next 20 years, I'm not going to take a tea because already my tea is sold through the oil. So that's really biggest, as you said, generations to come. What does that mean? And what is the guarantee that the oil is going to remain at the same quantity, at the same price that we borrow the money today is going to continue? Is this not another disaster like the way how we had a disaster with Sudan by then when you gave them a whole figure against a barrel of oil? So for me, it's really a disaster. It's a disaster, but I think if it's not real, thanks God. If it's real, it's a disaster. And if it's not real, let the public institutions come out. The Ministry of Finance and Petroleum tell us what exactly went wrong and if this is true. And if it's artificial intelligence being used, let them prove to us that artificial intelligence being used to clear the air and to create a bit of comfort on the citizen. Because citizens up to now, they're not comfortable with this message. And it's a talk of the town. And even somebody today, when I'm talking, someone was joking to me that, look here, these billions comes here, NILPET is reducing the size of the salary of the staff with 50%. And of course, the leadership of NILPET was doing it from a very scientific background, which I like it. I like them being transparent. I like the MD of NILPET being transparent, speaking to his staff in an assembly, telling them how the calculations were done, how many scenarios were there. There's a best case scenario, there's a middle case scenario, there's worst case scenario. But let's see still the best case scenario of reducing it, and that is covered public and come out the public. That's how government business has been done. But if you start doing this business of politics of waving, today you are here, tomorrow you are not there, it's really a big deal. It's a big deal. And for me, this really tells us of we must be genuinely enough as a political leaders to stand up to our political responsibility to save the best interest of the citizens. And the best interest of the citizens is normally saved through transparent and accountable way of doing things in a democratic manner, in a peaceful manner, without any threats, and also doing it in an inclusive manner where national consensus is a principle of having a national consent on whatever decisions that you need to undertake.
Thank you. Thank you. Listen to the former Minister of Finance, Dr. Mark.
Streams reduce our dependency on oil revenues. We need to make significant stride in actually increasing non-oil and also go for external loans. You know, we have successfully negotiated our way with several companies and financial institutions all over the globe. We did complete negotiations with Sheikh Hamad bin Khalifa Nahyan in Dubai, HBK, Department of Petroleum, for a long-term facility. We also negotiated with China African Corporation. We negotiated with Green Bank. We negotiated with Marina in Canada and so many other institutions, just to have long-term facilities that will enable us to pay salaries and pay government operations. I'm so much hopeful that some of the transactions will reach our country very soon, as we have completed most of them. These achievements, alongside ongoing investment opportunities also with the Bahrain companies in livestock, in fisheries, in agriculture, in gold mining, and medical services, that I wish you continue with my colleagues who we have started this journey together with. The journey we have embarked upon was not without challenges, Comrade Daniel Awo, but the unwavering support of our leadership and the dedication of our team at the ministry, we managed to reach here. And I want you to sustain it.
Okay. Here you have it. So they are not borrowed only $13 million. They bought more money from other companies. Other money already reached the country. Probably $30 million already reached by now, and they were already spending. So this is
and this is in a handover speech, remember. Mm-hmm. In handover speech from the old minister to the new minister. I think the new minister need to clarify to the country whether that's there. But also this tells you, where were the parliamentarians when he made that statement? Were the parliamentarians engaged in those pronounced loans that he mentions? If the parliamentarians were not involved, why should the parliament keep silent? Actually, this speech could have raised a proper parliamentary motion to summon the incoming minister and to constitute a committee of the parliament to investigate the procedures of those long-term facilities. Against what? Should we borrow money against immediate paying salaries and buying vehicles? Or do we borrow money to invest to another sector to reproduce money that through that we can pay back the loans? So for me, it's a question of, I don't use the word with the due respect and honor, they're using the word laziness, but our parliament is more reactive than proactive. where is the parliament relevant committees in being proactive on that message? Because as you played, is an official message. And then maybe is this one of them that is coming out? Because remember, the same country where this loan comes from is pronounced by the outgoing minister. So for me, it's a question of not confrontation, but it's a question of being honest and sincere to the leadership of the country. Because at the end of the day, whatever we're doing, what nasty or dirty game we're doing, at the end of the day is accounted on the leadership of the country. So I think for me, there's a really a way of us, we need to improve, we need to change, we need to alter the way we conduct government business. Because at the end of the day, consequences will not be on us of today. The consequences will be for generations coming after us. As you said to your daughter, our children, the children of our children. Some of these decisions are going to have implications heavily on them. And they're going to pay the price while we're not there. We're already dead. We have consumed it through our salaries. We have eaten it through our houses. And some of those houses, the time when they come, this technology is no longer applicable. They need to destroy them. They need to apply that technology and they don't have nothing to do. So for me, it's to what is their process for such borrowing of long-term facilities being discussed? What is the strategy? What is the interest? What is the intention? And how do we take those long-term facilities for a strategic purpose? Anyway, as I said, when I saw this document and I talked to some of the leaders, they told me this thing is not real. But if you follow this speech, somehow water is holding. You remember last time when we had with you a debate, and you asked him about the picture of David Yauya when he shook the hand of the president with a smile during the swearing in of the Gola. And you asked me, what is your interpretation of the picture? And I told you, yes, the picture holds water, but let's give it a time. Less than 2 weeks, the colors changes. So sometimes messages like this tells you that something is holding water. So if you look at the document and you look at the speech of the handover of the outgoing minister, somehow water is holding. And I'm quite sure even one of the reasons why the former minister goes is these negotiations that you take it up with the parliament and you go for long-term facilities, because some of the things that annoy the leadership of the country is that you take a very big responsibility in either one visit outside the country and you make certain deals that is not following the procedures of the government. It's not really keeping the leaders of the country informed. So I hope this particular leaked document should be an alert to the leadership of the country to sit and make a quick decision, because before they're operationalized, if they're operationalized, the leaders need to follow. And this also is an alert to the parliament to prove themselves that they have an overall responsibility, constitutional mandate to them. They should investigate it. But also this should be a stoppage of looting, because I made a statement in 2013, and this statement is becoming a normal statement people are using now. When our politicians disagree, they kill us. When they agree, they loot us. I hope this is not a looting scheme. And as the country is holding towards election, those who will contest for the seat of the presidency will find a question around these documents. They better clear it before that time comes, the air. Because some people do the campaign, they're going to use this. Though I know our campaigns are either paramilitary campaigns, we're not allowed to have that open debate where any common citizen have the right to question candidates who are contesting for presidency. Some of these things are going to come out. If there's a real open debate of candidate and the voters over the seat of presidency, it's going to be really a shameful position and a very hard position to answer. So for me, it's a high time for the leadership to clear the air. If what the Deputy Minister of Information have said, that's not enough. You need the relevant ministries to really produce evidence against the leaked document, not the true document. Or produce evidence and say the leaked document is a true document. We take apology, or we take responsibility. We're going to sit on this, and this is the way we're going to get the way forward. And the parliament need to be proactive. Because of course, if this document is coming to the parliament may be given another 20,000 in the name of a visit to the constituency or the election. They may call it civic education and orientation of the constituency, 20,000 against each MP. None of them will talk.
They will be silent.
Of course, like the 15 and the 40 that were used before. So let's see to what level will the leadership of the country take a step.
And this have like just staying in Juba, they never visit their own county or their own state, talk to their people. They never go back there. They are receiving money in Juba, and then they sleep there. They don't care about the people back home. And what are you presenting? You are representing your people, right? And you are not
remember the recess. When they were breaking for the recess, right honorable speaker told them, honorables, you are breaking for recess. Take advantage of the recess, communicate to the citizens about the upcoming elections, what the parliament have done and all this. Of course, the speaker, the first deputy speaker and other deputy speakers, the chairpersons of the specialized committees, what is called the ABC, they don't break for recess. It's a normal MPs who break for recess. But I will tell you, over 80% of those MPs have never organized any public rally. They have not gone to their constituencies. If you ask them, they'll say, we don't have money. But you ask, where is the 40,000? Where is the 15,000? And where is the salary? Why should you be paid money to go to your constituency? Some of them goes to the church only for prayer. They sing the songs together with the believers. They pray the holy prayer together with the believers. They say the amen together, and then they walk out. Instead of taking advantage, look here, pastor, I'm an MP, give me 20 minutes or 10 minutes. Some of them are given a chance to greet the people, because some of the pastors are very clever enough proactively. When they see the honorable say, oh, after the prayer, please, we have some of our leaders who have been busy in the parliament. They have visited us in the church. Let's give them a space to pray. They start coming, speaking like pastors again. All the time, the Lord is good, the Lord is good, the Lord is good all the time. Let God bless you and all this. Instead of saying, we in the parliament, we have said, no, they dodge responsibilities during the recess. And this is
their partners, I can interview them. So they need to be held accountable for what they are doing.
And this is where sometimes we start calling for the importance of elections. We need to really vote in people who can hold them accountable. If you confront them, say, is it you brought me? Is agreement. Being a lawmaker, whether you have been nominated, you have been elected, you have the business of the parliament, regardless of how you go to the parliament. As long as you sit and you take an oath to be an MP, you must play the role of the MP, whether you are elected or you are nominated. But because people are just brought by phones and they escape that, that's one thing that is really very critical, that they couldn't do it. Now imagine the new parliament, and this is why sometimes I need to really give credit to women in leadership. All this time we have many speakers that are unable to improve the old parliament. Yes, it's not a new parliament, people can argue over that, but at least a female speaker have improved the image of the parliament now. If you go to the parliament, if you sit in the gallery, you can feel it. Now, if you bring Lagu is still alive. If you bring Lagu and Abel Alier, they're still alive. Bring to the parliament, ask them, was this the parliament you built? They'll ask, the parliament when you built was not looking like this, but the parliament now look a bit good. Somehow Lagu can confirm to you and Abel can confirm to you that there's a bit of a change in the parliament. But there's a lot of accusation against the speakers, is corruption, eating money, of course. Those ones are none of my business, whether it's true or not true. But at least when women sit in a position, they show certain sign of development. And that's what we're saying. Let the Ministry of the Finance be given to women. Maybe women may do, of course, politically, no politician will accept other politicians' success. They will keep on leveling, they keep on investigating. This is always the business of politics. Trump is coming back. In the US, Trump is coming back. Trump has to be investigated. Let Biden leave. Some people will come about Biden again. Hillary Clinton was there when he left. There's a big issues about him. Bush was there. There's big issue about Bush. When Tony Blair was there, Tony Blair left. The issue of Iraq comes. Politicians are like that. There's no politician who will allow another politician to go clean without being destroyed. Mandela struggled. Mandela died. People were saying, no, Mandela even have compromised not by bringing the economy back to the black. So there's no politician that have gone out of power and it's going to be blamed. Blames are always there. So yeah, some of them hold water, some of them does not hold water. But at least show us a sign of progress. So that is where our honorables need to be questioned. And that's why I'm saying, even if we bring Jesus Christ as a minister of finance, with our system, with our attitudes, Jesus will never go clean as a holy person. He will be blamed. And even if you're not careful, you'll be sacked. You'll not be told, thank you very much, your term of office has come. You will be dismissed with another decree. So for me, it's a question of attitudes and it's a question of belief and it's a question of practice.
Yeah. So my last question, so that we can end our show. The peace talk between the government and holdout groups just kicked off in Nairobi, Kenya, and the meeting start actually on May 10th. It's next week. And I have seen that General Thomas Chirilo and Emmanuel Jawin, they have not attended. The only people went there is General Pagan, Amwom, and also General Paul Malongawan. So what do you think? What do you expect it for this peace between the government and Hollow Group? And also there are more than 100 and something political parties that were out. They want to be a part of peace talk in Nairobi.
Anyway, peace is something we need. How much it costs is something that we need. But peace in segments will not secure a successful country political transition. Let me repeat again. Peace in segments will never help a country to transition from a violent situation to a successful situation. So we're going to have segments of peace. The whole out group already clearly you can see they're divided. Pagana Moom and Paul Malong have taken. And my brother, I want to bring something that to remind you and to remind the audience. And sometimes our audience, we lost direction in literature. Remember when the name of Soma disappears, where we hold with it, I think it's in the archives. And I told you that history will repeat itself. So remember when Soma divided into itself to the wing of Thomas Hero and to the wing of Pagan. And they came, the wing of Pagan and Malong, they came to Nairobi to negotiate in Nairobi. An agreement between Soma, where Malong and Pagan came to Nairobi to negotiate, and then they leave Ajawen and Thomas under the Rome peace process. And they came to Nairobi, they struggled, couldn't break a deal. Then the name Soma disappear, and they become what we call the non-signatories group, which now they brought in the issue of national consensus building. History has come back to its origin. So the same splits have come clearly, that the previous split that attempted in Nairobi have come back to Nairobi. Those who have never come to Nairobi remain outside Nairobi. And that is a challenge. And that's a clear demonstration of political immaturity and political indiscipline that our political elites who are struggling for democracy have in their various groups. That's for me, I like to make that statement in general. Some of them are ethnic oriented, but they will claim we're not ethnic oriented. Some of them are clique oriented. They will tell you we're not clique oriented. Some of them are a group of 10 to 15 people who want to influence everything of their thinking or imposing it on the others. And they say, no, we are not for that, we're for democracy. So it's clear. It's clear that we have people who are using the praise of democracy for power calculations. It's clear. So we're going to go for Nairobi. Nairobi is going to roll out with a split of holdout group. And I don't know whether if we kick on the 10th in Nairobi and we continue in Nairobi with successful rollout, whether that name of non-signatories will hold water again. This name again will change. This name will change.
Yeah.
So what does
Are you going to go on Friday?
Obviously, we will be there. We'll be there. Then we need to see how the body language, how the agenda look like. And the name again is going to change. So some are going to say, I don't know whether you're going to have holdout group, mainstream holdout group, non-stream, or you're going to have holdout group, number one, holdout group, number two. You have holdout group, Vatican holdout group, Nairobi. But this tells you the question of political attitudes and the political ideology that our political elites have. Of course, some of them we confront ourselves on this question of political philosophy behind your standpoint. And good enough, none of them is not new in the system. Most of them work out of the system. And by then they're in the system and they have faced the system, they know the system, how it works. So for me, of course, the justification of those who didn't come to Nairobi is that they don't want the venue to be changed from Vatican. They want the Vatican to continue as a venue, and they want assurance that their safety and the security is assured in Nairobi, and they had question of compromises that Nairobi may use in terms of stick and carrot on them, on pushing them to a direction, and if they come there, they may be locked up, they can't travel anywhere. Those are the fears of those who remain in Vatican. And then, of course, we have those who came to Nairobi is to pursue that. But I think also, let me tell you, if this process goes on well, I know I'm not challenging it, but I'm speaking to a spiritual entity. I don't know St. Gideon's position. Will they feel annoyed or they will not feel annoyed? Will they really also watch it like that? Or also they will question it? So also the interest was in Gideon community, which was entrusted by the power of the Holy Father, Pope in Rome, to run this process. And now this process split up. Though I know leadership of Kenya tend to attempt to go. And that's why strategically, Kenya tend to bring Lazarus Simbeo because of his historical role in the CPA to reach out to these groups. So whatever the outcome of Nairobi is not consolidated among the non-signatories, is still the pathway of peace is problematic. And that's what I'm saying. If we want to establish peace in pieces, we may not get the required political transition from violence to peace. The pathways still have potholes because some have signed, some have not signed. As said, so many groups will do. And then some groups want to go to Nairobi as I want to surface there in order to find a space of climbing the ladder to power, because they don't have any legitimacy. So when you start also running a government through peace agreements, that's another challenge. For how long? So we hope to see the best, but I don't think that the breakthrough will be so quick. It's going to be a hard talk, and it's going to be a time consuming, but also it's a question of whether the attitudes are changed or the attitudes remain as they are. That's for me. And then the groups that are coming there, specifically the non-signatory, whether they will retain that name or they'll pronounce, maybe if the process kick off, the group which left in Vatican may pronounce a different name and take a different stand, and the group in Nairobi may have a different name. And specifically, when you start applying signature with a pen, automatically, signature with a pen have link with the power, and power have link with the interest. You sustain your names will change. Names will change. So if you remember history, keep on. And this is where sometimes people forget, as I told last time, I'm a bit worried about the way how the non-signatories operate in the splits in terms of ideology differences. And now it's become very clear that whatever I made them by then as a summer, they break off, is now showing it very clear. Nairobi Peace Process have demonstrated very clear. And we have seen this with SOA before, SOA break off. We have seen this with IO, split up is very high. We have seen this in the way how sometimes the shift of colors between IG and IO, changing from you lost relevance from red, you go to blue to gain relevance, and you come back from blue back to red to get relevance. So all those games, all those attitudes, if we don't stop it, if we don't bring them to an end, if we don't abolish it, the country have a long way to seek stability and peace.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Edmund Yakani. I think this is the last, our top story going on in the country, our South Sudan Current Affairs program that we do every weekly. So this is the main story that's going on in the country that we covered. So thank you so much. I hope next Friday we will focus on that Nairobi Peace Talk, how things going, and then we will. I try to reach out to Malungawan camp so that we can interview them, so to see how they are doing, how they react, and all kinds of stuff. So we will follow this story closely next week, and we'll see how, if they will reach agreement with the government, if they Jerome Paul and Jerome Pagan, they will go back to the country, because the way I'm seeing it, the unification, because a lot of people have been talking a lot in social media about unification of SPLM. So I don't know if this is that's what they are cooking behind the scene. That the election is coming, is remain with like less than 7 or 6 months, 7 months, and then they maybe they say that okay, the election now, people are again the election, that stuff that they're not being accomplished. So let us make this unification. As you said before, when SPLM united, they will do that. When they divide, they will kill us. So now it's a time for them. Now it seems that okay, the SPLM is about to unite again, and then they say, well, we are a happy family, and then they start looting the country. probably that's what we are seeing. So thank you, Edmund Yakani. I can give you a background.
Yeah, and you can see the role of the president of South Africa. Remember, the president of South Africa is a champion of the unification. When he was a vice president, he visited the country as a president. He tried, but I think in his message is clear he couldn't succeed in the unification. That's why I say let the leaders meet and make a decisions on finding a best way. And unfortunately, when he reached South Africa, he made a statement that until now I don't understand the statement, but this statement may surface. Remember, he made a statement in South Africa after leaving Juba that the concept of the African solution to African problem is working in South Sudan. What does that mean? The concept of African solution to African problems is working in South Sudan. Is that an SPLM unification theory or I don't know whatever, but let us wait, let us see what is going to come out and let us see the Nairobi peace process, how it looks like, whether that's the interpretation of it. But you can see very clearly when he left frustrated by making a statement that is a primary responsibility of our leaders to meet and make political decisions to determine the phase of transition the country from violence to peace through the elections. That's what he said. Of course, my last message is that I appreciate the little intervention that the Unified Force have done in Tombra. We wish they can do more. At least the transfer of the Unified Forces to Tombra have reduced the violence for the last 2 days, and the commander have asked those civilians who are holding illegal arms to surrender. I hope that that can be used as a good model that we have seen. But of course, sometimes this also does not take a long time. It turns to something different. So that's for me is what you have asked. What is the use of the Unified Forces? I hope they can be used for the best interest of safety and protection of our civilians. That for me is the most important thing. But otherwise, to your audience, thank you very much for listening. We'll continue challenging ourselves in a constructive, productive way. And we will hope that culture of dialogue and debates and culture of no confrontation, no harm, no threats will be the culture that we can come together on a table and talk like this, interact and reach consensus without harming anybody. It's only statements that will challenge our thinking, will challenge our argument. And normally I used to tell people, as today is the second day where the world is commemorating the Press Freedom Day, I would like to say, if you don't allow people to express themselves, if you don't allow people to talk and people to build consensus through dialogue, then bush become the option. And South Sudan have too much bush. And we've seen people who feel they've been denied, they jump into the bush and they use the bush as a tool of speaking, which is for me is something that is unacceptable. It's something that we cannot believe on it. I believe let's talk to each other as long as we don't point bullets and we don't harm each other, we don't arrest, don't detain each other. That's the best way. But if we can express ourselves, that will help us in building consensus and building political maturity and political discipline for building the state and the nation of South Sudan we want. Otherwise, thank you, Lex State Media. Congratulations for your website. Wish you success and hope to continue in the conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Edmund. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful night. God bless. Thank you. Let's continue the next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
You say we are free. I need a list to give you more, you better. You it all. You say we are free. I need a list about your more, you was gone. Ayan, Jana Junubi Ayan. Mafi Gurus, Kisim Giwasha Shedi. Oh, Jian. Jana Junubi Jian. It was to be late. Umakulu Elefadur. Anataban. Since 2011. Ladiasa. Same level today. Anataban, 21 years, fighting freedom, and we are fighting ourselves today. No one is safe on Emily Road. No one is safe on Juba to Terekeka Road. Dead bodies recovered on the river Nice. Only God knows when the killers will be found. Oh no.
Thank you everyone. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for watching. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Lex State Media is here always and bring some update. Thank you very much. Take care. God bless. Bye now.